guys, welcome to Andrea Loves Everybody. I'm your host, Andrea Gazette, and this is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships. And with us today, we have guest Jessica Lovelace Chandler.
Hi.
Jessica, I usually start this podcast off by telling everyone something that I love about them. Oh. I just met you.
Yeah, right.
But from our online interactions and just kind of like seeing the stuff you post, it's really funny.
Oh,
and I really especially like you had a post that was about a wild cougar escaping, and you just had a photograph of a cougar and a wild ass, and it was really cute and really funny.
Thank you. I think you might be the only person that liked that. It got no traction. I was like, that was great.
It was always the
ones. It's always the ones that I think are funny that no one else.
I was a big fan. I was like, look at this pun. This is great. But I also appreciated you kind of shared a story online, which is why I wanted to have you in here today. You shared a story about when the Harvey Weinstein stuff came forward. He kind of wrote this open letter that was like, well, I never forced anyone, and I never, people agreed to do this. And you had a kind of an experience of being sort of coerced into a situation you weren't really comfortable with. And you shared the whole story online. And I thought that was really incredible just to kind of be able to, I think storytelling is really the only way we can understand someone else's experience. So I think that coming at it from that perspective and just sharing your story to me was really valuable and helping other people and kind of reframing how we talk about,
Thank you.
Oh, well, that's not really sexual assault, or they agreed to that or whatever. So would you mind sharing that story?
No, I would love to. And I appreciate what you're saying about helping other people. I think I have a tendency to overshare online, but it's been rewarding by the number of people that I feel even privately message me and say, thank you. You said something that I think that I can't say right now.
Totally.
And so
totally.
Not that like, oh, I'm a hero, but whatever. But it gives me a purpose in writing stuff. You know what I mean? So.
I think part of the problem with a lot of this sexual assault stuff that's happening is that people feel like good and bad are these really easy things.
Right, exactly.
That like, well, it's either yes or it's either no. And I've been trying to work this out as a bit, but it's clearly not working because it's far too dark.
Right.
But that for women, sexual assault, there's a 1 to 10 scale.
Right.
And 1 is dick pics and 10 is rape. And in between, there's all this stuff that we can't call the police on you for.
Exactly.
Where we're just like, well, that was shitty and I don't feel comfortable with this and it was really crappy and you whatever. But it's like, if you tell someone about it, they're like, but it's not rape. And
right.
You're like,
exactly. Well, at least you weren't raped. So that's always what you get of like, well, at least you weren't raped. It's like, but
this was horrible. Yeah, you kind of were. And I think men don't understand the subtlety of that distinction.
I think even the law, if you look at it, it was like, well, did he penetrate you with his penis? Other than that, no. Then, you know what I mean? Like that's the ultimate thing that we look at as rape when, like you said, there's a lot of really horrible things in between that.
Because rape ultimately, and a lot of this sexual assault and a lot of this stuff, it's not really about sex.
No, it's about power.
It's about power.
Absolutely.
And so men who get off on power they get off on the manipulation of you and your fear and the fact that you kind of don't really want to be there.
Exactly.
So that's still criminal, but we can't persecute it in a certain way. So I don't know if you want to.
I'll go ahead. No, so the thing I remember most about, first of all, part of why I'm able to talk about this, I think, is that it was, I was 19, doing the math, it was 14 years ago, something like that. And so it's been some good time between then. But the thing I remember most about that day was that phrase, Halle Berry fucks for parts.
He said that to you?
This is what this guy said to me. So let me give you a little backstory. Basically, I had gone to an audition that I found on one of the major audition sites. I won't say it on here because it's not their fault. They try to weed people out. But I had gone to an audition. I remember the instructions for the audition were dress sexy, dance sexy, and be sexy.
Cool.
So I tried real hard to do all three. And it was supposed to be for an up and coming hip hop artist, which maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, maybe there was a real music video. I have no idea.
Totally.
What I know is I went there. It was a real audition in the sense that there were lots of women there. It was, I wouldn't say an open cattle call, but all sorts of all over the place types. And so I was chosen by one of the guys. He talked to me outside and he said, "Hey, we'd really like for you to have a callback. We'd like for you to meet with our producer." So I went to the producer's office the next day, and I can't remember if they gave me something to drink. I was underage, but I can't remember if they offered me a drink or if I had already been drinking because I was nervous. Okay. That is entirely possible because I did that a lot when I was nervous, especially in my early,
when you're younger.
20s. Yeah. And what I started remembering is he started talking about where I'm from. I'm from Arkansas originally.
Did you still have your accent?
I don't think so. Honestly, I did theater a lot as a kid. So like when I got here, I was doing theater at USC and I was like, okay, no, don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. I was scared to talk for the first 2 weeks. And then when I did, everyone was like, oh, how come you don't have an accent? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did.
Cool.
But anyway, so I was telling him I was from Arkansas and he was like, oh, well, that's great. You're so much nicer than all these LA girls. All the LA girls are so fake. They're so, they're so rude. And that's one of those manipulative tactics of, well, you're nice, you'll be nice, you won't, put up a fight, that kind of a
Totally.
And it's interesting because that's very much word for word what a guy said to me a couple years ago when he rubbed his dick on me on the subway. So it's a very common way to come at women. But anyway, so I remember exactly the setup of his office. Like I could draw his office
because you're planning so many exit strategies.
That's probably it.
Yeah, it imprints in your brain the space. You're like, okay, where's the door? How do I get to the door?
You're
what's the thing?
And I remember what part was said at what locations. I remember that we started on the couch. And I had a short skirt on. I remember exactly what the skirt was too. I don't own it anymore, but I remember it was this like khaki jean kind of skirt, and it was very short. And I remember he started kind of like caressing my thigh, which I wasn't comfortable with. And somehow I think I got up and we ended up walking through his hallway, which was like, here's my platinum record I produced. Here's my platinum record I produced. You and I were just talking about R&B. I think they were like probably old school R&B records. They looked like real platinum records, but I had no idea who anyone was. So they weren't necessarily impressive to me.
Totally. Just like, okay.
And that was the thing is like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm so impressed by this. I wonder what I should do. It was just more like, I don't know what to do. What is going? I was just almost.
You felt like you're like, okay, this man's touched my thigh.
Right.
I'm not comfortable with this. I don't know how to tell him I'm not comfortable with this. You're still kind of a child, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I believe he was in his 50s when this happened.
So you're like, in terms of like authority, like this person has so much authority over you. I still remember when I was 18, I worked this summer job and my bosses were really cool, but I went to the office with like their head boss and I had my sunglasses in my back pocket and the head boss patted my butt. In front of everyone, in front of my boss.
Wow.
And I was like, I was 18.
Right.
And this person's an adult and I'm in a room full of adults and none of those adults stood up for me or said anything.
Right.
And I was just like, that was really wrong.
That is really gross.
And then my supervisor, who was an older woman, she was like, oh yeah, he's really creepy. Just stay away from him. And I was like, we have to tell someone. And they're like, I mean, he just does that all the time. So it's also just like, oh, that's just your problem.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, I'm a child. You're an adult and you're not standing up for me.
What we're talking about with the power is like we write it off and we're like, well, that's just who he is. That's what he does.
Totally.
And like, no, that's not okay. He doesn't get to just because he has money and power, it's not okay.
Was it just the two of you in that space?
It was just the two of us.
So there's you have no help.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I remember after we were looking at the records, we went and sat at his desk. And I didn't think about it until actually after I wrote this post online because I remember exactly the slant of the desk. And what I realize now is it was very much angled from where I was sitting that I could see out of both giant windows. I could see like how high up we were. I don't remember what floor it was, but for LA, it was a really, you know, it was a nice
Very
office.
prestigious.
And it was like, look how it was a showing off of everything. And it was almost like this, well, you can't say no. Look how wonderful your life's going to be.
It's a display.
So I remember he starts telling me stuff. We're talking about hip hop music. I don't know what we were even talking about, but like we'd be in the middle of something and then he'd be like, open your legs. It was, you just made a face. And that was exactly, I'm like, sure, what the face I made. But I was like,
were you sitting down?
Yeah, I was sitting in a chair, like across from him at his desk. And I was like, I didn't even say okay. I just did it. And I don't know why I did it, except for that I didn't know what else there was to do.
Yeah.
Totally. So I did it. And then he was, we were talking more and then like interrupts me and says, take your panties off.
This is an audition for a music video.
Right.
Supposedly.
Well, it was a callback. And it was because he was so interested in me and I had such possibility. And the funny thing is, as soon as I got there, I knew that I was in not the right. It wasn't like the whole time I was like, this guy's going to make me a star. I wasn't like starry-eyed about all this. I just didn't know how to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of
so much younger.
Right. And he had been playing with my thoughts the whole time I'd been there, even again, just by saying like, you're such a nice girl. You're so polite, almost to the point where you feel like, okay, I have to keep being polite. And I am from the South and that was what we were taught. You know?
And you're also like, oh, I'm impressing this person.
Right, exactly.
Oh, this person's regard is important or valuable to me.
And the other thing because I remember too, he'd be like, oh, don't be shy. You're so sexy. You're so beautiful. It's okay. Like he's like guiding me and like, you know.
Your shyness is what's keeping you from opening your legs to this fucking creep.
Exactly.
Totally.
So I did that. And I remember at one point he goes, you know, Halle Berry fucks for parts. I was like, I don't think I was even talking this whole time because I just was. It's like when something happens so fast, you don't know what to do.
No, I totally, like the first few times someone grabbed my ass, like a stranger.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad for at least 5 minutes later. Like there's a delayed reaction because like what just happened?
Right. It's the same with the guy who rubbed his dick on me.
Yeah, you like panic and it's like almost like a deer in the headlights. Like you just don't know what to do because you're like, did that just happen? Why would anyone ever do that?
But you know, it's so funny when you talk about this to guys, even when they're well-meaning and they have like, empathy for you. They're like, well, I would have punched that guy in the face. It's like, no, you wouldn't have.
No.
And I don't know if you have seen Terry Crews testify before Congress. That was wonderful.
I didn't get to watch the actual thing. I heard about it.
And one of the things he said was, you know, especially as a man of color, as a black man, I'm not going to be that angry black guy who punches some like, you know, rich white guy in the face. And
I'll go to jail.
Right, exactly. And he's like, I didn't know what to do. He's like, my instincts were, I don't know what to do. And this is, this is Terry Crews.
He's so awesome.
Huge
I really
and
like
awesome,
him so
but
much
like,
as a person.
I really like him.
Like, I don't know him,
he's
but
great
like,
on Brooklyn Nine-Nine too.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, you should watch that. It's a good show.
Okay.
I'm not on it, so I'm not plugging. I'm just telling you. But yeah, so he starts telling me how this is like the industry and he's educating me and just everyone does it. Halle Berry does it. It's like, well, even if Halle Berry fucks and then gets parts, like Halle Berry was going to get those parts anyway, probably, or she was going to get, and that's the thing about Harvey Weinstein. He said later, well, I just offered them, I just propositioned them. But that's not it because there were women that said no and who told what he was doing and he blacklisted them. He totally got everyone turned against him, even people who didn't know the story. Like Mira Sorvino, I think, was one of them. And then I forget who they actually came out and said, I recently found out that I was blacklisted by Harvey Weinstein and pretty much every list I was not allowed to be cast for anything, even outside of his company. So it was serious stuff. And the other thing that I'm thinking is like from this experience with this guy, again, when he's saying to me, open your legs, I didn't say no. But he didn't ask.
Well, you didn't say yes.
Right. And he never asked. It was a command. It wasn't you should do this. It was, I don't know.
It wasn't, hey, do you want to?
Right,
Hey, would you be interested in having a drink with? Hey, I'm identifying that you're a person who has their free will, and if we're going to have a sexual experience, I want it to be mutually beneficial, and
I want you to be into
full of consent.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's just like, do this because I'm powerful, and that's what's hot to me.
Well, and they've talked more recently about fight, flight, or freeze, because we look at, and first of all, Louis C.K, like everyone in comedy is known, especially I lived in New York and did comedy out there. Everybody's known about that for years and years and years. And I remember all these people were like, well, we don't know for sure. That's my guy voice. We don't know for sure that he did it. And then as soon as the news hit like last year and it really was confirmed that he had done all this stuff, everyone was like, well, I can't believe it. And I'm like, you've known about this for years and we all told you, you just wouldn't listen. And so then of course comes well, why wouldn't you just leave the room? And that's always what this comes back to. And for me, I look back and I can't answer that completely. Why wouldn't I just leave the room? I remember I desperately wanted to. Again, it wasn't like, oh, I got played by this guy because he told me I was going to be famous and then I wasn't. It was like, I just didn't know what to do to get out of there.
How did you finally get out?
It's so funny.
What happened?
It's funny because that is the one thing I don't remember. Is that really weird?
No.
That's weird, though. Okay. I feel like it's really weird because I remember, so I remember his office, so I can see it. Like I can see it. And I think part of it is, like you said, planning an exit. Like this in the back of my mind had been running the entire time of what excuse can I say? What can I do? Maybe I can say I have to get home at a certain time. Like, you're just coming up with all these ideas. And I don't remember what happened. I remember that was the end of it. He didn't touch me further than that. And I left. I think the thing that I remember perhaps the most afterwards was that I told someone and she was like, well, you kind of let it get that far. And I know she meant well. I know she wasn't like absolving the guy of guilt. She was trying to be helpful to me of like, well, next time just you have to cut him off early.
Yeah.
And I get that, but at the same time, It's like, that is how manipulation works. You test little, test little water.
What's happening to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. The only time that I've ever been able to kind of like react to something that happened to me is I was walking home from a concert with my friend Bob, and this dude grabbed my ass, and part of it was just like, I'm with my friend.
Right.
And we're having this really deep and emotional conversation about like anxiety and depression, and like we're having such an intimate moment, and a stranger grabs my ass, and I was so mad, and I turned around and I was like already ready to fight that person, and then I realized they were like probably 6'5", 350 pounds, like huge. It was like a mountain. Like my face was at his chest, and I was just like already ready to fight him, and he was so drunk. And then I was just like, what happened in my head is I was like, am I gonna die? Because some stranger touched, like that's all that happened. And then his friends like pulled him back. So, but he stepped up to fight me. And I knew in that second that I was just like, am I going to die over this today? Is this what it is? And then of course, like my friend Bob, like kind of was, because we're walking, and he's like, well, she's not there anymore. And so then he like turns around because he didn't notice what had happened. That's so funny. Because we were talking, we were hanging out, and this person, like we just passed by people. There's all these people on the street. And then I think he realized what happened, and he's like, hey man, look, do we have a problem? Like, and he just kind of like stood up for me, which I really appreciated. But it was like, dude, like, do I have to die? Like, what has to happen to me to feel safe in the world?
Exactly.
Like, what is it? And I think that people don't understand. They're just like, oh, well, I would fight him, or I would tell him to get off, or I would just whatever. And it's like, A, you don't know what to do. B, like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that someone is doing this to you.
It's not how your brain reacts, because it's like you said, it takes yourself a second to realize what's happened. I think there's a lot of like disbelief in the moment of like, well, clearly no one would do that. So why would anyone do that?
And the thing is, it's not overt. They're not saying this is what I'm doing to you. It's all very subtle and like manipulative and just kind of like, hey. Hey, you should do that. Hey.
And I think when you tell someone this story, some of that gets lost, the subtlety. And so then it sounds like much simpler than, and like you said, it's not a, black and white kind of a thing.
It never is.
Exactly.
Everything is so gray, and like there's so many shades of discomfort. And I think men don't understand.
That's like the sequel to Shades of Grey.
Shades of Grey. Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Discomfort.
I love it.
We should patent that shit.
Right?
I was talking to another comic about this too, is just like there's this thing that men don't understand about the way that women are socialized.
Exactly.
Is we are socialized so much to be a good girl and to do what you're told.
I wrote another long post about that.
Yeah,
too.
and just like I remember as a young kid, like boys in my class, when I was a young kid, boys in my class would ask inappropriate questions.
Yeah.
Like they would be very assertive. And I did too, because I thought it was very funny. And my mom did not raise me to be... My mom is like a dude. Like she's raised like a dude. She acts like a dude. Like she could be a lumberjack. Like I don't know. She's like a really tough broad. She's just, like my mom talks about her summer job when she was in college was lifting 50-pound wheels of cheese, and she like fought off an attacker.
Wait, where did you say you're from?
Wisconsin. Yeah, that was her job. Right. Yeah, like my mom is built like a fucking brick house. Like she's so tough, and she talked to me when I was younger about physically fighting off someone that had drugged her drink and wanted to rape her because she's a fucking beast.
Right, exactly.
But like, I'm not built like that.
I was going to say, you're not
I'm
like that at all.
Much more tiny. And I don't work out. So like, we're so socialized to be like, well, just be nice and just, boys are boys, but, gals and whatever. And we're so socialized to kind of accept men's behavior and accept the way that they treat us, and to make ourselves amenable to whatever men need from us.
Well, and I think part of it too, Andrea, is that I think a lot of us get taught of if you don't act or if you don't do anything, it will go away.
Yeah, just ignore it.
Right.
Just ignore that boy that's pulling your bra strap.
If you just say, if you just smile and giggle, he'll go away.
And that's usually what happens when a stranger flashes you his dick on the street.
Right, exactly. You're like,
I mean, please don't kill me.
This guy came into my work the other day. I was like bending over the front desk, doing some inventory stuff, and he walks in and he goes, "Hi," and I was like, "Hi," and he goes, I said, "How can I help you?" He's like, "I'm just saying hi because I saw you bent over and then I saw your face, so I thought I'd come in and say hi." And it's like, I just went,
okay.
Right. So I just went, thanks. Because I didn't know what to say. And what I want to fucking say is like, I hope you die. I would never, like, just seriously, you just made me so uncomfortable. I work with kids. I'm like at my job with kids.
Oh, no. What?
I know. And then he says to me, he goes, well, if I wasn't so busy, I'd take you out right now. And I was like, none of this is how this works. What are you talking about?
It was, no, thank you.
Right?
No.
Exactly. But instead, I giggled and walked away.
Because here's the thing is like, you don't want to make that man angry. Because then it's like, oh, you're such a bitch. What's wrong with you? And then that dude is like waits outside to fucking stab you.
Right.
Like, is this what I'm going to die about? Is you're being creepy as fuck?
And that's the thing. You're always either a tease or you're a bitch. Like, or you're a slut. There's no right response to any of this.
This happened the other day and I thought it was really funny is like, I went to my friend's house to record a podcast and I was just like really nice because I was going to go to this opening with my boyfriend later. So I was like all dressed up in like this hot red. I was like looking cute, whatever.
Yeah, you were feeling yourself.
I was feeling myself, right? And this dude with all the neck tattoos saw me and he's like, "I like your tattoo." And I was like, "Thank you." And first I just ignored him because I'm like, I ignore strangers. We're not friends. I don't know you. I don't talk to you. But he kept bothering me and he came back to me, inserted himself into my personal space in a way where I was like, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Is like men feel an obligation or
an entitlement
to insert themselves into your life.
Right.
Like, I didn't fucking ask for this. I don't know you. Get the fuck out of my face.
Right.
And so he's like, "Hey, I really like your tattoo." And I was like, "Thanks." And I just kept walking. And he's like, "We should go out sometime." I was like, "I have a boyfriend." And he goes, yeah, but we could be like friends. And I just laughed and I was like, that's not what that's about. You know exactly what you mean. I know what you're saying. I will not fuck you. And I just kept going.
That's wonderful.
I was just like, I'm not going to fuck you. Well, stop.
It kind of goes back to what you said of this is how, I'm not blaming, my mom is very, you know, my mom's a strong woman. She's very liberal. She wasn't like the one that was doing this, but it's like I remember being socialized, like you said, to just be polite,
especially
just
by
like
teachers.
when you're, you know, when a little boy pulls your pigtails and like lifts up your skirt. Oh, he just likes you. It's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. He doesn't get to touch me.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thing, that a terrible disservice we're doing to girls, but also to boys, to be like, oh, it's okay if you like her, to just go ahead and walk up to her and do something to her body.
Totally.
And I think what we should be ideally moving towards is teaching women to say more assertive, or for it to be okay for them to say assertively, no, I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you, and go away.
Please don't touch me.
Right, exactly. Or not even please, but no, don't touch me. Exactly.
I think something that has always really baffled me is like I've had Black friends say that like people try to touch their hair.
I know, I think that's a crazy.
And I'm just like, why would you ever touch someone's body without their permission? That's a horrible, like, ever. Like, I've never felt like I wanted to do that. I've never felt interested in doing that. Like, just any part of someone's body without their permission, that's ridiculous.
I was talking about that to my gay friend last night because I was saying I've been groped, like my boobs grabbed more in West Hollywood than anywhere ever. Because I think a lot of times gay men
I'm
are
gay,
like,
it's fine.
Right, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm gay. And I'm like, well, if you asked, I probably would be like, sure, go ahead and touch them. But like for you, you don't walk up to a straight, and these are people
I would not grab your boobs.
Right,
and
exactly.
I'm not.
And my friend was like, well, I don't think, he was like kind of trying to write it off, it sounded like. And I was like, he's bald. I was like, what if someone just walked up and rubbed like the top of your head? You're like, oh, that'd be weird. I'm like, yeah.
It's weird.
It's weird, and that's not even a sexual thing. So
It's
imagine like
don't
whether
touch me.
and whether or not like this guy is interested in fucking me or not, he doesn't get to touch parts of my body. That's
What
not-
if someone just came up to you, started smelling your hair? What? Get away from me.
I
It's
feel
so
like-
weird.
To be honest, I feel like I've probably done that. I've smelled deodorant. Well, I like pinpointing what deodorants are. So
Okay,
like,
that's
but
fair.
I'm kind of creepy, but not, but like not in the hypocritical as far as what we've just talked. Oh man, forget everything I've said.
But you're not like walking up to strangers, be like,
No.
lift your arms.
Right.
Like,
No.
what?
Because the whole idea is, we don't exist to make other people uncomfortable.
Well,
And they're,
something I've even found is like my friends, like we do comedy. And so your friends, like I see them and I want to give them hugs.
Right.
And I found like certain people just aren't into it.
Yeah.
Certain
They're
dudes,
probably autistic.
they're just not into.
I mean, it's comedy.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, some of them
Right.
not. Some of them are just like, nah, man, I just don't hug girls, or
Fair
like
enough.
I just don't do this, or whatever.
enough.
And I'm like, that's totally cool. And so, like with certain people, I'm like, hey, can I hug you?
Right.
And like sometimes they'll be like, I appreciate you asking. I don't want that, but a handshake would be good. So
Right.
like instead of just like assuming what someone wants, I try to verbalize like, hey, is it okay if I give you a hug?
I like that.
And that even I think has been better because like for me, I'm like, but hugs are love and I love you
Right.
and it's joy and I want to hug you.
Right.
And it's like, but it's not
That's 'cause
about
you love everybody.
I
or
do.
Is it everyone?
I love everybody. I do. Yeah. It's
Which is the name of the
It's
podcast?
everybody.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did
yeah.
it. Yeah, we
But
did.
like people do that even with children. It's just I dated this guy for a while and then we'd go to his family parties and his stepmom would pick up all the kids and they didn't want to.
Right.
They didn't like it. And she'd like hug them too much and kiss them and they'd be like, get off me. And it's like you're teaching kids that they don't get to say no.
Exactly.
Whereas like I would just like hang out with the kids and then they'd want to come sit on my lap and then we'd
Right.
hang out and like just giving people, like even animals, like don't pet an animal
Right,
until they ask you.
exactly.
Like dogs will tell you when they want to be petted. So like no one likes to be touched
And
without
most
their
people at
permission.
least ask, like, can I pet your dog?
Totally. Well, like this interesting.
We have more respect for like people's dogs than we have for
for women.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And
exactly.
people. Totally.
Exactly.
Like some dogs, like you let them sniff your hand and then they're just like not interested.
Right.
Don't pet that dog.
Right.
Leave that dog alone.
Or like my cat will let you know if he's gonna
Into
fuck
it.
you up. If
Totally.
you know.
Get those claws
Well,
out.
it's funny you mentioned children because I like I said, I work with kids, and inadvertently I've started doing this thing of high five. I put my hand out, and they have the option to hit my hand and give me a high five or not. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Because I want to hug them.
The kids?
With that age, it's usually about the 2-year-olds, you know?
Okay.
So and they don't entirely understand the concept, but I like that I'm not like forcing my touch upon them because they're cute. I would pick every single one of them up and squeeze them. I think all it can be
really overwhelming for children at that age, especially to interact with adults that are not their parents.
Exactly. And that's very scary. Instinctive. I mean, it's what we should be doing.
Totally.
You know?
And that's a good way for, I think, giving children, or especially even people that are smaller than you, the choice of really when they feel comfortable to hug or to have any sort of touch is really important, because it teaches them like, oh, I'm always in control of my own body. And like, that's really important.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's all a mess. What I think too, one of the things you said, we were talking about, guys are always saying, you know, I would have done this, I would have hit him.
They don't know.
And you're right, but you're talking about this time that you were essentially assaulted by a boss of a boss, or you know, whoever.
Totally.
And no one did anything.
No one.
And they weren't even the ones in the situation, really.
Yeah.
So even that says a lot of, I wish we could channel some of that really empathetic anger, which is great, but like, instead of telling someone what you would have done, just do it. Next time you see a girl that's being harassed, don't just stand there and see what's going to happen. Just go
just be like, hey, man.
I had this girl that
are you okay?
Right, exactly.
That's something that's happened to me. There was a man who had schizophrenia that lived near my building, and I was walking down the street, and I was wearing like a dress and heels, so I couldn't run away.
Right.
Poor choice on my part. But I was walking.
You just blamed yourself.
I know,
for that,
right?
Girl.
I was just like, oh, I can't get away. And I'm walking, and this man is following me, and he's yelling at me about murdering his children and also Martin Luther King, which I did not do. I don't know if you guys know, I'm about to be 30, but I was not alive when Martin Luther King was. Not my fault. So he was yelling at me about murdering Martin Luther King, and this dude sees me. He sees all the panic in my face, and he just goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "No." And he stops, and he starts talking to the guy, and I just keep walking.
Wonderful.
And it was like, I was like, oh my God, I needed that so much. And I found out later that he actually went to the same school that I went to, and so I like was like, "Hey, thank you," you know.
Really
but it was
cool.
just like really nice, and I had never met him before. He was a total stranger, but I was just like, oh my God, that's it. That's all that I needed. And this is like the middle of the day, and a man is yelling at me.
Exactly.
You know, like what? No one else like stopped him or stopped it. And I was clearly terrified. So it was like, hey guys, do that. That's great.
Exactly. Put your money where your mouth is. That a phrase?
Yeah, totally.
You know, do what you said you would do.
But I also appreciate that he asked me, "Are you okay?"
Exactly.
You know, just like, hey, you seem not okay. Are you okay? No.
Well, my brother passed away a few years ago, but he had a severe disability and he couldn't open the door and he couldn't do stuff. And one of the things, he worked for the American Disabilities Association. And one of the things he always said was, don't assume that someone needs help, but it's always good to ask. It doesn't offend someone for you to be like, hey, can I help you get that door? Or hey, do you need help? Or hey, are you okay? And I think that you're right. That's a really good way of him not assuming his insertion into your
He's not
world.
white knighting me. He's just like, oh, I think this person might need a hand.
Right.
I think that that's super important too when we talk about people with disabilities. Like the same thing, I use the same rules for children and old people.
Right.
And all people.
Right.
Is just like, sometimes people, you can see that someone might need help, but you always ask if they need help, because for me, sometimes there's something that I'm trying to do, and it's important for me to be able to do it myself.
Of course.
I don't like when people do things for me. So why would anyone else?
You don't want to feel helpless, but sometimes you really do feel
I could use a hand.
Right?
When I'm struggling with a giant box, do you need a hand? Is so much better than I'll carry that for you.
Right.
Like,
but that's exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
I really like
that. And the other day I was at this bar. I go to this bar a lot by myself. Don't stalk me. But no, because I know a lot of the people there. I know the bartenders and everything. And I was there, and there was this girl who had never seen before. And one of this really like older, drunk, regular guy, a regular at the bar, is talking to her. He's super drunk. He's like, just won't stop talking to her. So I don't know this girl, but I walked up behind her and I said, would you like to come do you need to go to the bathroom with me? And she was like, huh? And I said, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I didn't know if you wanted to come with me. And she was like, yes. So she stood up and we both just walked away.
That's really nice.
And it was cool because it was like, it was simple. And it was kind of like you said, like, I felt like I was giving her an out if she wanted to. But I also didn't get stuck in this situation.
Yeah, totally.
Either, which was really good.
Totally.
And we ended up having a long conversation. And she was really nice. She's from Chicago and
That's
like
sweet.
just moved here. And it was really nice. So.
I think that's a really cool thing to do is just like, hey, if you see someone that looks really uncomfortable in a situation, instead of just watching it happen, just be like, we'll just go check up on them.
Right,
if they're cool, it's fine. Like,
exactly.
If you see this has happened, I've lived in some weird neighborhoods. There was one time where I was walking my dog and I saw a maybe 2-year-old child crying outside on the front porch by himself with no parents around.
Oh, no.
And he didn't speak English. Oh, wow. So I just hung out with him and I was like, hey, man, you know, I was like kind of talked to him in Spanish a little bit. I was like, hey, are your parents here? And he's like, no. And I was like, do you want me to wait till they come back? And he's like, yeah. Aww. So I just waited with this child till his parents came back. And I was just like, I don't know what any of this is about, but you shouldn't be outside by yourself.
They finally came back?
Well, I think what actually happened was his mom and dad were like arguing inside and he was scared. But like our neighborhood was not a place where children should be outside unsupervised. It was not a safe place. So I was just like, we'll just hang out.
Well, that's really nice.
But like, if you see someone, hang out with them try before they get kidnapped.
That's a good well, let's put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, if you see someone, hang out with them so they don't get kidnapped. Right. So we have more time, but I think this is a really interesting episode. We kind of talked a little bit about just like sexual harassment, sexual assault. You still do comedy, you still are a part of the entertainment world. Have you, since that experience, clearly that changed how you thought about safety when you go to auditions and when you do stuff. Like, did you ever find yourself in similar situations or did you identify them sooner if they did happen? Or
I think so. I think I got, I didn't move to New York until I was 24. So it was a few years later. Okay. But I'm always grateful. I didn't love New York. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my home. But I'm always glad. I lived there 3 years. And I felt like one of the things I took away was like being more hardened, which is not necessarily a good thing. But like if you get so used to people being in your space and to having to assert your space that I have no problem doing that now. If there's a bus full of, empty seats and some weirdo comes and sits next to me, I'm like, actually, you can't sit here. I will say that to people. And it took me a long time to get there. And it is like this, sometimes you go, well, I don't want to be rude. But then you go to like, I don't have to care because this person's being rude.
And I don't care.
And the other day, this guy on the plane, I was like, okay, do I say something? When guys are like man-spreading, going over your armrest and just like creeping into your space. And I don't think
especially if you're the middle seat.
Right. Well, and he was the middle seat. I was on the window, but I was like perched, crouched up against the window because he was taking up so much space. And I don't think he was trying to, be sexual with me. I think he was not caring that he was taking up more space than what he had paid for.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm bigger, so I get to take up space. That was that kind of idea. And I finally was like, oh, hey, do you mind? I'm going to use this armrest if you don't mind, since you have the one on the other side. And it was pretty simple. And I'm still mad because I shouldn't have to ask that. Like it made me uncomfortable to have to ask that. Yeah. He should know better. But if that's what it comes down to, it's like, fine. Whatever, I'm done. I think it could have changed me in a different way, but I think it did make me more just aware, and it made me, I was mad at myself afterwards. I think that a lot of women say that. Even when the guy rubbed his dick on me on the subway, I was mad about that and myself. I'm like, I feel gross. And you're like, no, he should feel gross.
Yeah.
He should feel disgusting and awful because he had to touch me. No, I'm just kidding. But it's so common for us to look back and go, well, what did I do wrong?
Right.
And in some ways, I guess that can be a good thing in the sense that it teaches you to look, like you said, for signs in the future. And that's what makes me most mad about the Me Too and the Time's Up thing from the response from guys is like, we're not overreacting when we're saying these things, when we are afraid of you or we don't want to leave our drinks around you. We're not overreacting. We're reacting because this happens every
all the time.
Day. And I remember my husband, ex-husband, complicated. I remember we were talking. We lived in New York in Washington Heights, which is a big Dominican neighborhood. And I remember I would hate going to the post office because every time I would even just walk down those streets, it was like, "Hey, mommy, oh, hey, smile, baby, smile." Like you don't, whatever. Yeah. And there was no right answer because either you engaged and smiled, and then they were like, "Why don't you come back here? You're so pretty," and blah blah blah, or you just keep walking and then you're a bitch.
Yep.
And that's the thing is like, there's no right way to respond to that. To the point where I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just be a bitch and not deal with you. If you're going to call me a bitch, call me a bitch.
My best friend in high school, whenever she would do something that was not the rules, she would just walk wherever the fuck she wanted.
Right.
And then like teachers and stuff would be like, "Hey, you're not supposed to go in there." She'd just pretend not to hear them. And she would just keep walking. And I was like, that's really rude, but also...
kind of brilliant, right?
Kind of brilliant. And she just like, if we would be out together and like dudes would like holler at us or whatever, she'd just ignore them.
Right.
And I was like, oh, you can just ignore people. Right. You're not obligated to talk to someone just because they're talking to you.
Right.
And we're not, and we don't have to.
I think too, we just, like you said, we're taught to be polite. We're also taught to want to be liked. And like, I want you. I want you not, cool I don't want to be hated, but at the same time, I hate you. So it's okay.
Well, I think this thing happens too of just like, because women were seen as like less than so much. Like, I want to be one of the cool girls. I'm a cool girl. I don't care. You can like grab my boob. I don't care.
Exactly. Like, cool I can take it. I'm playful. I don't get so serious about it.
I'm like cool. I'm like, I don't set boundaries because I know we're just joking, but you kind of do want to fuck me, but it's fine. Like,
and I don't get along with other girls. They don't like me. Other girls don't like me. It's like, no, that's because you're whatever.
No, but there is this thing that happens where like, women, because we're less than, we're treated as less than in our culture,
and we're physically less.
We're physically less.
Physically take up less space, except for your mom. It sounds like is bigger, but
I love her. Mom's a tough
but in
bitch.
general, the actual physical space that we take up is a lot less.
Totally, we are more demure. We're less than. We're an afterthought. Like in so many ways, if I'm at a table, my seat, like this would happen to me all the time. There's a boy that I was dating in Milwaukee, and he was like, it was very like a bro-y corporate environment that he was in. He was like, there's Todd, and Todd's played football in high school, and there are men drinking the strip clubs, right. You know, like that kind of shit. And what happened is we would go out, and I'd meet his work people, and they'd all introduce. No one would shake my hand. Every time, this would happen every time, is like the men would not shake the hands of the women at the table.
That's weird.
Super rude. And I was like, I would just be like, "Hey, I'm Andrea. This is me." And then I would talk a lot of shit because I'm a fucking comic. Like, obviously I'm going to be a part of this. But it's just like this thing happens where like men in a business setting don't really even see us as valuable or worth talking to. Yeah. Unless you're going to fuck us, we're not worth talking to. Right. And that's the way that men treat us. And
or you're someone else's property, so or they someone else's talk to you.
I can't talk to you. Like, I'm a human fucking being.
Right, exactly.
And I will fuck you up. But it's like this thing happens where it's like, instead of just being treated as a person, we're treated as like someone else's property or, a fuckable object or whatever. And so like, to reassert your power or to reassert like, I'm one of the guys, you sell your women down the river.
Yeah, it kind of is true.
You have to, like, people are like, if I want to be accepted by the boys club, I got to be one of the cool girls. I'm not really a girl.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the thing that we do. And it's like, I think we're fucking done. Right. I think we're done doing that. We have to be.
I think the Me Too movement has been really powerful in that sense because it did make us all, I think again, so that's, what I was going to say too with me walking to the post office was, I remember when I told my husband about it one day because he was like, why don't you ever like leave, why don't you go places in the neighborhood? Like you're supposed to be going to the groceries, whatever he's saying to me. And it's like,
I don't feel safe.
And I told him it's not even that I don't feel safe. I feel uncomfortable constantly. I feel like no matter what I wear, I'm like the entire way, I'm just going, please no one talk to me. And I'm like, it's something that he doesn't.
In a snowsuit. I got hollered at in a snowsuit.
You got that face.
It was covered by a scarf.
That's
what
hysterical.
Are you doing?
Well, I guess that just goes to show, right? But it's like you said, it's not always about it's not about sex. It's about power. And it comes back to that.
Totally. It totally does. So I kind of want to talk about, we should probably kind of get out of here, but this is such an interesting conversation. This is technically a podcast about love. I think we've talked a lot about like sexual assault and that kind of topic, but have you found like in the relationships that you have had that are loving and that where you have experienced love, how did you kind of like set boundaries with that person or feel safe with that person in a way that was different than like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting. Boundaries. That's not always my strong point. No, but I think, I don't know if you mean physically or you mean
all of it. Just like
it.
asserting, because I think that's something that happens and something that I've done in past relationships is I make myself so amenable to my partner because that's what women are socialized to do.
Right.
Is I kind of tend to lose the person that I am.
Exactly.
And I think part of asserting yourself as a person in the world and saying like, you can't just touch my ass whenever you want and I'm not going to fuck you. And I'm not going to politely ignore your overt sexual comments.
Right.
Like all of that has to do with coming into your own as a person.
Right.
And I want to know
lots of therapy, which is what, honestly, that's what helps. That's what's helped me a lot with boundary setting and with being able to communicate what I need as a boundary. It's fun. I was messing with this guy earlier today. We're sort of seeing, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I get it.
But we actually haven't had sex yet, which is really
How long have you
weird
been dating?
For me. Well, we've met up 4 times and we've like fooled around, but we haven't like actually had sex, which is just really weird for me because like it's not my MO.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to hang out tomorrow.
Nice.
And I was like, so we're going to go have brunch, right? And he was like, well, it's kind of early. And I was like, #real talk. How do you expect to fuck me if you don't take me to brunch first? I didn't say take me. I was like, if you don't go to brunch with me in the morning. And he's like laughing. But at the same time, I'm like, there are situations where it's like, cool, we're both just fuck buddies. We're gonna meet up and
brunch, bitch.
Right. And I'm like, I want to talk to you. I want to like get to know you I'm like, then we'll go home and have crazy sex. It'll be amazing. But until then, it's like, we've already waited this long. Let's just fucking talk. Let's talk to each other.
Yeah.
And there are times when I actually told him the other day, I was like, if you're going to come over late at night, that's fine. But I feel like I'm going to ask you to stay. And I think like, I want you to know up front that I don't want you to just walk out. Like, I don't want you to stay an hour and then leave. Like, I want you to spend the night. And I think it's as simple as that, but like telling them in advance, like, here's what I'm expecting.
I have of you.
Right. And I think actually it was funny because I was listening to a couple of rap songs the other day. I forget which one it was, but there's actually in rap this way that happens with men saying, well, if you're not going to fuck me, don't get in my car. And I know that's just terrible, but at the same time, it's like, he's telling you, like, he only wants you in his car if you're going to, like, there's something to be said for the honesty
about his expectations of what he wants from you.
Exactly. And I think as terrible as that sounds, I think if more people are just like honest about what's going on, because there's been times where I'm like, guys would invite themselves over or like, I had a friend that wanted to come hang out late at night and I was like, well, that's cool, but honestly, I'm not going to fuck you. So you can come hang out. And he was like, did you really feel the need to say that? And I was like, yeah, I did. Because you're my friend. I feel you're kind of into me. And I was like, so if I hadn't said that, would you be trying to have sex with me? And he's like, well, yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of times people want to flip it back. When you are preemptively assertive, people want to flip it back on this like, well, I wasn't even thinking that. And it's like, yes, you were. I know you were. And if I didn't say something, then this is getting back to negativity. We're supposed to talk about positive.
You know what, though? No, I think that you're making a really important point because so often as women, we do have especially when we get older. Like when I'm 19, I didn't know. I was like, was that person hitting on me? What's happening?
Right.
But by the time I get to be almost 30, I know what your intentions are by the way that you talk to me.
Exactly.
And if I say, hey, I'm not interested in fucking you.
Right. I'm not being conceited either.
I'm not being conceited. Right. I know you want to come over and give me a massage. Right. Yeah. Yes, I know what that means.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not stupid. I'm an adult. Exactly. So like, and people are like, what do you mean like that? And I'm like, no, you're being disrespectful. That's not.
You don't do that to your guy friends.
No. You're going to go give Brad a massage? Get the fuck out of here.
Would you go to Rosie O'Donnell's house and like give her a massage? You know, you got to think about it.
Exactly. So it's like, I know what you're saying.
Right.
And so often I think like we use coded language to talk about sex instead of being explicit about it.
Right.
And I think it's so important to just be explicit about, these are my intentions. This is how I feel about you. This is what I see this as. This is what I like or don't like. Right. You know, all these things are so important to just communicate with someone that you're with.
And honestly, I've done that in the reverse situation of, in the sense that I've told guys like, I really want to have sex with you, like very upfront. And they're like, well, that was kind of upfront. And it's like, well, that's what I want.
Do you want me to pretend I don't?
Do we just have to pretend for like, 8 years? Adult. And I'm like, I want you to come over to my house. I want us to have sex. Like, I don't understand why. Again, it's this whole like, just be coy, just be quiet. Just don't say stuff out loud. And it's just
don't say stuff out loud. Just use your mind.
Well, no, it's like the whole better seen than heard, or women are better seen than heard. Wasn't that a thing for a long time?
I think it's really funny because so often men get upset with women. So this like kind of like thing happens like, how am I supposed to read your mind?
We have the best dude voices, by the way.
Oh, wait, how am I supposed to, bro? How am I supposed to read your mind? And this thing happens. I think it's really interesting is that women, we're socialized from such an early age to take care of everyone else's needs but our own.
That's a really good point.
So we have this thing called empathy. And to men, it looks like a superpower. To men, empathy is a superpower because we know what other people want or need or are feeling because we just are aware.
And I'm getting really sick of hearing that women are just naturally better at that because
we're not. It's
true.
Socialized.
It's
totally
socialization.
When I was a kid, I was socialized of like, oh, well, dad's been working outside. Why don't you bring him a glass of lemonade?
Right,
Did my brother ever get that treatment? No. It was all me. Right. It's like, oh, we mother men. That's what we do. We mother boys and
whether
men.
We are naturally better at reading someone's emotions or faces or whatever, we're also like told that we have to.
But that's our job.
Like I don't know who it was, I would give credit to them, but someone had a really great tweet, and I'm probably butchering it of, as a quote of like a guy saying, what? So I'm just supposed to like be worried that every like smile I give someone in the office could be taken the wrong way. And the girl, whoever wrote it was like, yeah, welcome to how we feel all the time being women.
Constantly.
Right? Like it's...
Oh, if I smile, now this guy thinks I want to fuck him.
Exactly. Great. And so like for you to have to take on some of that uncomfortableness.
Discomfort?
50 Shades
we got it. 50 Shades of Discomfort.
For you to have to take on some of that so that I'm not the only one that's sitting there going, oh God, what do I do in this interaction? Like, I'm sorry, I don't want anyone to have to be uncomfortable. But maybe if we get to the point where we're both talking about it openly, or we're both reading each other better, then maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay for you to have some growing pains, dudes. Like, and that's the thing guys. is this has all been here. We know this. This time's up means time's up because it's been around. And
forever.
What we're saying is part of why it's all coming to the surface now is because someone actually did something. Like Harvey Weinstein actually went down. Matt Lauer actually got kicked off of Today or NBC or whatever it was. And we're seeing actual results. Whereas for a long time, women are reporting this stuff and nothing's happening. No one cares. Or they're getting blacklisted or fired.
Totally.
And so the reason everyone's rehashing all this stuff that may have happened 20 years ago is it's like, well,
we never got justice for it when it happened.
And I love when people are like, why didn't you go to the police? It's like, a lot of my friends did, and they weren't taken seriously. Again, I know this keeps getting really dark, but I don't think
it is dark. I think it's honest.
Good. And I think, like, for me, what I love, comedy actually is what I say comedy made me a feminist. And I think part of that is being in a world that's still so much a boys' club. And it's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better in the last, I know you said you've been doing it a few years.
Only like 3.
Yeah, like 10 years ago, there were much less women doing it, at least regularly and seriously, doing comedy out here in LA. And I don't think we were as like united strong, as a group. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that have done really hard work, a lot of women who've done really hard work to do that. But yeah, that's part of it. And I think as I've become more of a feminist, what I found that I am really attracted to I date men and women, but as far as in people, especially in men, one of the things I have found I'm attracted to is like a passion for empathy, or a passion for like, well, I can be a feminist and care about that, even though it's not necessarily directly affecting me. Like I have some great friends that are feminist, and like it's such a turn on.
It's like you care about people that don't look like you. Oh, that's so hot. Yeah. I feel like the same kind of empathy that we're asking men to give to us is the same kind of empathy that people that aren't white are asking for. You know, it's just like, hey, we're human beings and we want to live in a world where we aren't afraid all the time.
Right.
And that's all that we want. And I think that being open to empathizing with those people's experiences and not taking it personally, that someone
and actually listening.
Yeah, actually listening. Because I think what happens, and I was talking with my boyfriend about it last night, is I was like, men don't think that this is their problem.
Right.
They don't see it as
a really good way to put that.
They're like, oh, I don't have to deal with that.
Or like, I didn't do that. I'm a good guy.
Right.
So,
and that's what it is they're like, every guy is like, well, I've done something that's made a woman uncomfortable, but I'm not bad and I'm not a rapist. So just because that guy did it, it's not wrong.
Right.
Because they don't want to feel like they might be culpable for anything, or they might have to change their behavior.
And you're right. As a white person, that is something that I've experienced when listening to people of color share their story. It's like, oh shit, I've done that. Like that.
Totally. And we all have.
You have to own this guilt. It's not even guilt. You have to own this, what's the word? Culpability, as far as like, okay, I did that. How do I not do that?
Better.
How do I help other people not have that happen to them?
Totally.
And that's what I think guys need to do less talking to us about how they care about women, listening. And just more listening, but also more talking to each other, like about like, hey, that's actually not cool what you did there, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
well, I think they're just not socialized to notice it because
they're adults now. They have to. I know. I'm totally with you. I'm like all about socialized, but in the same way that we have to be assertive now, because even though we weren't raised to be, like, dudes, you got to make this your problem. It is your problem. It's everyone's problem right now. Totally. And in order for us to exist and have healthy relationships, like you said, we have to be communicating with each other. We have to be looking out for each other. It can't be, some of it is going to be communicated, but also a lot of it is going to be like, are you okay? Like the guy asked you.
Hey, are you okay?
Hey, are you okay? You're, in a relationship, it's not just like, oh, you're expected every time you're having a bad day. You don't necessarily have to go to someone and be like, oh, I'm having the worst day. Like, someone should be able to read you if they care about you.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
I think these are all really good points. I think for me, like the overall message here is kind of just like, the more people you love and the more you're capable of loving people that don't look like you or don't act like you or aren't your same race or gender or same experience, the more that you'll be able to empathize with the experiences of other people that are different than you. So, hey guys, love more people.
Make love, but not to people who don't want it.
Yeah. Exactly. Make love, but not to people that don't want it. I love it so much. This has been a really fun conversation.
Thank you so much for,
I had this is so wonderful speaking with you. Do you want to tell people like where they can find you on social media if you're into that?
Yes, I'm very into that.
Okay.
So my Twitter handle, best place to follow me, is @somethingpunny. So it's like punny, like a pun. You get it.
I love it. I'm so happy.
Well, it's funny. I was going to change. That was supposed to be like a placeholder of like, I'm going to write something punny here. And then I ended up getting on Comedy Central with I was on at midnight as one of the panelists. No, I got picked because of my tweets. I was one of the panelists, and so now I'm like, I don't want to change my name because that's how like I got built. That's really how funny. I got everything.
That's really
so funny. Now it's just stuck. But you can also find me on on Instagram. It's JAY, or sorry, wait, let's go back. It's Jessica_EL_SEE. So it's Jessica LC. And find me on Facebook, Jessica Lovelace Chandler. Don't be weird.
Please no creepy DMs. Don't wave at people. Hey, if I don't know you, don't add me and wave at me. It's
and
weird.
Don't say how's it going. Like say something about. Also, just add me and like my post. That's the way to my heart. You know,
just quietly and slowly, just build it up, and I'll be like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy who's like liking all the right posts? You know, like the cougar and ass one.
That's how so funny.
That's how we've gotten to know each other.
Totally.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
This is
been
so
really fun.
This is such a good conversation.
I was nervous, so thanks for holding my hand and walking me through it. I appreciate it. We haven't literally been holding hands, although like we could have bet.
If you're into it.
If you're into it. You have to ask first.
Guys, if you like this podcast, go ahead and rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. If you leave a review, when we get to 50 reviews, I will pick one person out of there and I'll illustrate their face, just like I do for the guests each week. If you like this podcast, follow on Twitter at Andrea Loves Pod, at Andrea Loves Everybody on Instagram. Follow me on all the things at Sundress Comic. And I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.